these are going to be the guys that you will be looking into in your upcoming rookie drafts. Let's do it up. All right, Alfred, you have the first pick. And by the way, just so everyone knows out there, this is a Superflex mock draft.
Perfect. I think I'm going to probably make the same pick I did before. Bryce Young, I'm going to go chalk here again. Bryce Young has been my quarterback one in this class for well over a year now. I never wavered. I never had CJ Stroud ahead of him. I think Bryce Young is the 101 in real life. I think he's the 101 in Superflex. You just can't ignore. And I know who your pick's going to be after this, but I want that guy on my team, let me tell you. But I just don't think you can pass up a 101 quarterback. Now, this past year was weird. There was only one first-round quarterback. It was taken late first round, Kenny Pickett, who I don't even think was the most exciting quarterback in the whole draft class. And, then everyone else went like third round. It was a mess.
It was weird.
This year, I think we're going to get more of a traditional 3 to 4 quarterbacks in the first round, including the 101. And it's going to be Bryce Young for me. I really like him. The only knock is height and size, but Kyler Murray's proven that's not really a problem. And Bryce Young has incredible movement skills in the pocket to avoid hits, to keep the play alive, to find his guy downfield, incredibly accurate. I mean, he really does have most of everything you're looking for, except for, I guess, frame.
Yeah, I can't blame Alfred for the Bryce Young pick there. It is a super flex league, and I do think we have a bad taste in our mouth from last year's quarterback class, but this one is better, and it's only going to get better from here on out. But with the number 2 pick here, it's a pretty easy one for me. I'm going to go ahead and pick Bijan Robinson, the running back out of Texas. We've been talking about him everywhere. Everyone's talking about Bijan. He is one of these generational running back prospects to come out. We've heard the comps from Ezekiel Elliott to Saquon Barkley. I mean, everyone is excited about Bijan. Honestly, at this point, anything less than a Hall of Fame career is going to be a letdown. So get your expectations high. We're excited about Bijan joining. I don't even care where he lands. I'm going to be picking him at the 1 or 2 spot here in mock drafts.
Yeah, pick number 3. So I've already got quarterback in hand here, and there's a few pretty exciting receivers to look at. But I'm going to go with another guy at running back who is basically being projected in the first round of most mock drafts that I'm looking at. And a first-round running back, unless you're Clyde Edwards-Helaire, is an excellent investment in fantasy. So I'm going to go with Jahmyr Gibbs. I'm seeing him consistently picked in the late first round. I've seen him go to the Eagles a few times in mock drafts, and I think he could fill a role of that multi-purpose weapon that they want Miles Sanders to be, who's having a good year now, but his rookie contract's got to be almost up, if not. I mean, is this his 4th year?
Yep, and he was a second-round pick, so they do not have the.
They don't even have the 5th-year option. So I mean, his rookie contract's up. Does Philly want to pay him? I think selecting Gibbs would definitely, open that door for a full. I mean, he's going to be, I think, he's not going to be the workhorse that Bijan is, where you're going to like Bijan, I think is a 30 touch guy. And that is rare, right? Yeah. That is super rare. I think Gibbs is maybe more of a 18 to 20 touch guy, with 4 or 5 of those being receptions though. So we kind of love that still. I still think RB1 in fantasy is certainly in his likely range of outcomes. I think Bijan's a guy who could be a future Jonathan Taylor 101 in a startup type. I don't think Gibbs has that ceiling, but I think he's got RB1 for the life of his rookie contract, which is all you can really hope for with a running back, especially in PPR. I really like him. I think he showed enough at Alabama this year. So give me that. Give me a first-round running back. Sometimes we only get 1 a year or 0 a year. And if we get 2 this year, that'll be really nice.
I don't have my quarterback yet, so I'm going to go ahead and take my quarterback. I'm going to take Coleridge Stroud. So CJ Stroud at Ohio State. I know people are starting to cool down on CJ. It's gone from most of the season where he was neck and neck with Bryce, and now it's, Will Levis is obviously better than CJ Stroud. Maybe Anthony Richardson's better than CJ Stroud. What about Hendon Hooker? Is he better than CJ Stroud? Everyone is just assuming that CJ Stroud just died and is now like a late first pick or something. I mean, I'm seeing him fall into the teens in first round mock drafts now these days. It is ridiculous. If he falls any, he'll end up with, a better team than, I like Bryce Young a lot, but the Houston Texans aren't an offense I'm super excited to get a piece of at the moment. But CJ Stroud, if he finds himself in an offense that's built a bit more up to start out, that's the perfect system for him to be in. He's a guy that I think he's not going to be able to do as much from a creation standpoint as Bryce Young, but you put CJ Stroud with some good weapons around him, he can be a good NFL quarterback. He's a guy I'm excited to take here at the 4th pick.
So, I think this highlights a little bit about this year's class, being, you got the top 4 pick. You're going to be really happy almost no matter what your team needs are. Now, obviously, if you need a quarterback and you're in a Superflex league, you want a top, but even top 4, you just wound up with a quarterback in the top 4. So I think it really depends on team need. But I think there's a bit of a fall off here at the 5th pick. I'm in a league where I literally won. My team was trash all year. I had like Pacheco and someone else came on at the end of the year, and I ended up winning like the last 5 games. Still was terrible, but went from like the 3rd pick projected to now I'm locked into the 5th pick, which is a really big bummer in a dynasty league and a Superflex because I think there's a big drop off here. However, this is a little bit tough.
No, this over with. I totally understand. Bob and I did a mock last week, and at the same point, I typed in the Google Doc, "This pick sucks."
This pick sucks. I don't know what I want to do here. I'm going to roll the dice and take my number 1 wide receiver in the class. When I think there are some people that will argue, I want to go Jordan Addison here. I think he is a safe 1st-round pick. Probably there's another guy who's another very safe 1st-round pick, and maybe a 3rd. There's going to at least be 3 1st-round wide receivers, I think. But, I think Addison can do it all. I think he can line up in a lot of different ways. I don't think he's only a slot. He's a little light, but that matters less and less for me in the NFL and on the wide receivers. I think he's going to be a 1st-round pick. I think he's going to produce right away. And I think his upside is, pretty good, if not like super elite. But he seems to be a safe guy who's going to contribute for your fantasy team. At the very least, he's going to be a solid wide receiver 2 for 6-7 years at least.
Mm-hmm.
We do need to temper expectations. I feel like in the 1st round, everybody expects these 1st-round draft picks to just be superstars. That's not always going to be the case. It just isn't. So again, temper your expectations. Sometimes guys are wide receiver 2s, running back 2s, quarterback 2s. You need those guys on your team too. You just do. So
the deeper the leagues that I've gone in, when you're in a 12-team redraft every year, I shoot pretty much only for upside because that's how you win those leagues. I mean, you win those leagues by having 2 or 3 top 5 options at each position, and you just, because everyone's team is fairly even. When you get in these really deep leagues, I think there's a dynasty rewind where you start talking about Devy leagues and stuff with these huge rosters. I mean, picking a guy who's going to give you wide receiver 2 numbers for a decade is really, really valuable. You find yourself like there's no options on waivers. The dynamic's so different. Like I found myself, I pick guys sometimes in rookie drafts where like the risk, I don't really take that upside risk as much because like you need a guy who's going to play. I mean, sometimes you're struggling to fill a roster spot with a guy who's going to play on Sunday.
Yeah.
Depending on how deep the league is and the injuries that you have, you want your whole roster to have guys you can at least plug in and get something. So having a whole bench of wide receiver 2s or 3s is actually helpful. So I've shifted a little bit as I've gotten to the deeper leagues to think more holistically about a whole roster construction and not just shooting for upside, which is what I always used to do on the smaller leagues.
Yeah, I like that. I think wide receiver 2 is where you build your depth because it's just about impossible to have running back depth.
Right.
So you have to have good wide receiver depth.
Yeah, and in PPR, half PPR, I mean, your flex are going to pretty much be, unless you just luck into a healthy and good running back roster, you're probably going to be playing wide receiver. So you're probably going to be starting 3 at wide receiver, maybe 2, 3, 4 at flex. Nate, we're in a huge league. You made that ridiculous league. And I'm struggling to fill my last flex spot some weeks, And so if you have a guy who you can rely on to even be a wide receiver 3, better yet, a wide receiver 2, hanging around on your bench that you don't even start every week, but it's super helpful. I mean, I've just realized you need to have more of a thorough depth-filled roster in those leagues. Yep. And those are mostly what I play now.
All right. So Nate, you are up at pick number 6.
Like Alfred said, these middle picks, they're not bad, but they force you to make a choice because after that top 4, there's a wide tier here of it's basically the rest of the 1st round. Any of these guys can go at any place until we get draft capital. But with the 5, 6 pick, you're reaching into the tier and you're trying to pick someone at the top of it, even though they're kind of all in a big muddy mess. So, I could go wide receiver. There's a couple of guys I don't mind picking here. There's some running backs even I don't mind picking here. There's even another quarterback that, at the end of the draft process might be going here, if not higher. Mike, it's a guy that you like, but I'm not going to pick him because I don't like him nearly as much as you do yet. I'm going to go with Jaxon Smith-Njigba because I can't pass up on this guy. I am starting to cool a little bit on him, unfortunately. I do have to admit it, but it doesn't really help you out when you miss your entire season with a lingering hamstring issue. That does, create some cause for concern. And while he looked incredible last year, playing alongside Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave, I was really hoping to see him this year take on that lead role and work with Marvin Harrison and Emeka Egbuka. We didn't get to see that, so we have to kind of go off of, well, where is he at now? I still think he has enough to be picked at this spot. I think he's going to get that first-round draft capital. He is a little bit of a safer pick, as Alfred was just talking. There's another wide receiver that has a much higher upside, but I feel like JSN is a good value here because I know what I'm getting, and I'm confident that I'm going to get it out of him.
All right, so let's do a little bit of a recap here. Our first round so far through 6 picks. Currently, Bryce Young, Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, CJ Stroud, Jordan Addison, and Jaxon Smith-Njigba. So that's 1 through 6. Looking back last time when we did this, Bryce Young. So again, 1 for 1, and then it changes. CJ Stroud was 2, Bijan Robinson was 3, Jaxon Smith-Njigba was 4, Jahmyr Gibbs was 5, Sean Tucker was 6. So we have not mentioned Sean Tucker's name yet.
Oh boy.
Alfred, does that change now, or do you have someone else for us?
No, I'm not going to go Sean Tucker now because the running back depth in this class really seems to be like, I think you're going to get a guy pretty interesting, pretty exciting guys in this mid-second round.
Yeah.
So after the high end, which I think Bijan is in a class of his own, I think Gibbs is in it, honestly, maybe even his own tier. And then after that, there's like 5 or 6 that I'm like, I like all of them for different reasons. So I'm going to hold on that. So Sean Tucker doesn't go here. I'm going to go with probably the guy that Nate was talking about, Quinton Johnston. He's universally a first-round receiver at this point. Was instrumental in Texas Christian's, Cinderella season. They're in the playoff, and he honestly had a bit of a slow start. And we talked about him, I think, in a show at the Expo. Shout out to the Expo; it was a great time.
Yeah,
and we did a live show there, I think, and talked about Quinton Johnston and how exciting he was. And then he started pretty slow. Mm-hmm. Then he went crazy. I mean, second half of the year, he was fantastic. He's everything you wanted him to be. Big play threat, flexible, everything we talked about, just like a huge 6'4", 200 plus, flexible guy, can run a lot of routes, also deep threat, jump balls, has the speed, the whole 9 yards. He was clearly the alpha in the offense this year. He's been doing it for a few years now. And I think he's definitely solidified himself as a first-round NFL pick. And so now I've got 2 first-round, receivers on my fantasy team. Pretty happy about that with the 7th pick here. So give me Quinton Johnston, and we'll still wait on running backs.
Are you waiting on running back? Where are we going here? Pick 8.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for Alfred to make my choices easier by, it's a war of attrition at this point. It's like, well, I just want less choices. Give me the guys that are left in the tier. Quinton Johnston was the guy I was talking about. His upside is huge with his physical frame and all of his athleticism. The wide receiver depth is short, and I could go ahead and try to grab someone here, but I don't think, I think there's a break after these 3 wide receivers. We got the 3 wide receivers and then a tier break for me. So I'm looking back at the quarterback position. I'm looking back at the running back position, which, as Alfred said, there's a lot of guys there. And hey, I might even be looking at the tight end position, but maybe it's a little early since it's not tight end premium. I'm looking between quarterback and running back right now. I'm going to have to go ahead and grab a quarterback because this is a super flex league, and I already have CJ Stroud. I got to go up to potential here, and no one has higher potential
than Will Levis.
Here it comes.
Man, this is fun because both of you guys would be, you guys are both fighting here over who's better.
Here we go. I know it's this guy.
I'm just going to say Hendon Hooker, right? No, I'm not.
Oh.
No, I'm going to have to go with Will Levis, actually. Sorry. Anthony Richardson does actually have insane potential, but I don't believe he's a first round pick yet with my evaluations. I think he's still too raw at the time. And he definitely needs to sit a year, have that Trey Lance year. Am I willing to, wait a year, maybe 2 years? I mean, I've seen some scouts say he's a 2-year project. I wasn't super excited that he was coming out this year. I think he needed a year back, but I'm going to let Alfred talk about him later when he gets picked. So Will Levis, he's obviously getting the Josh Allen comps. It's not the safest prospect out there. Not the safest prospect out there, but Will Levis has all the tools that you want for a quarterback. Leaves some to be desired, but he's going in the top 5, top 10 of mock drafts. Some are calling the quarterback 2 now. There's even rumors that the Houston Texans might want him at the 101, which would be insane. So I'm following the draft capital here. I'm going with Will Levis.
I was wondering how I thought you were going to make it easy on me that I didn't have to pick him here. But after all that build up, I think now is probably the right time. Let's just go with Anthony Richardson. It is super flex. And for the reasons that you stated, I think now's the time to take that upside QB. I already have the safest QB, I think, in the draft. And now I'm just going to be stacking. I guess, I don't know if we're picking this like if it's a real or if it's like these are on our team all together. I don't know, but whatever. This is a fine spot, I think, to take Anthony Richardson of the Florida Gators. Yes, I watched him all year. Yes, I agree. He's probably what he put on tape this year. I mean, I don't think he should be a first round pick. I also don't think Levis should be.
No, probably shouldn't be either.
I know that's what the mocks are doing. I'm a little skeptical because we saw this last year with multiple, like they had like 4 or 5 first round picks, and then obviously in real life it didn't happen. So I don't know exactly what's going to happen there, but pretty consistent. Both, Levis and Richardson are both in the top 10 now. 4 QBs in the top 10 is kind of like the industry standard, like what most are expecting at this point. And like you said, Trey Lance got picked and then got the full-blown redshirt year. And there's risk there as well, because I have some Lance on my dynasty teams. In fact, I traded him away for him in a package away for a Dak Prescott earlier this year in one league. You redshirt a year. And then he did have an injury, which is kind of a freaky thing. Like, we didn't necessarily count on that, but then you lose a whole nother year. Now, if you drafted Lance, you haven't seen him in 2 years.
Yeah.
In Superflex, you need that guy. Like, you weren't drafting at the 2nd overall pick in your fantasy league because you had QB depth, probably. You needed him. I needed him in multiple teams, and I haven't even been able to start him one time. I guess I started him in the monsoon week 1, right? And then he got injured. It's so fragile if you're going to say the first year is gone. And, with Richardson, that also seems to be like that might be the case. But I'm banking on tools here. Matt Waldman kind of encouraged me a little bit. So that guy's very smart guy, very savvy.
We just had Matt on the channel, actually.
Oh, yeah. So, okay. Yeah. So, Matt, he's fantastic. He's awesome. He's a very smart guy. He put out a tape on Richardson, and actually was very encouraging. And I was like, I actually did watch it. I was texting some friends. I was like, okay, when you watch this, you're like, how the hell did we lose 6 games? Like, we should have been 12-0. Because he did highlight his best plays, and he you watch and you're like, wow, okay, there's more there than his errors. Although he did have a bunch of errors, we can't say that he didn't. So, but there's enough there. There's some building blocks. I think if that's how NFL evaluators are going to take a look at him, I think, first round is in the cards here. And so, a team's at least going to give him a shot. That's what draft capital buys you, right? It's time and opportunity. So I'll take him here. Sorry, that was a little bit long-winded. He's a complicated player, though. I mean, him and Will Levis are both. After you get past Stroud and Young, it's a Rorschach test, honestly, with those 2 guys. Like, what do you see? Do you want to see the upside, or do you want to see the failure? I'll take it here, and I'll be happy to root for him, at least on my fantasy team.
Yeah, at pick number 10, I'm going to start dipping into the rest of the running back class. And I'm going to have to make a selection here. I'll have to, because we've talked about how we have to start picking out of these tiers. I'm going to go after Zach Charbonnet. That's who I'm picking here. I think he brings in a true NFL style running from week 1. He is a NFL starter week 1. He comes in checking all the boxes. He has the athleticism to compete in the NFL. He has the size. Despite that size, he has the lateral ability and agility to make people miss and get down the field. He's got good top end speed, good vision to run inside, outside. And he also has the receiving chops that he's really shown off with Chip Kelly over there at UCLA. So he really checks all the boxes. I thought it was a bad idea last year when he went back to college because he was my RB3. I didn't think he'd be the RB3 in this class, but as it stands right now, he is actually my RB3 in this class, and I'm going to go ahead and take him. There are some concerns about his draft capital, but I don't think that by the time we get to the end of April, that will actually be a concern. So I think he's a day 2 prospect, and he goes to a team like the Falcons.
It is.
I like that quite a bit. Actually, on our sheet, our default sheet, he was kind of buried at like the 6th running back. I actually moved him up to 3rd. I think he's tentatively, I mean, I haven't done full on rookie rankings yet. I think he might end up being my 3 as well. And I've always been kind of a Charbonnet hater, but I think it's hard not to argue for him. And I think that's a good pick. I was hoping you would go to Sean Tucker, and I was actually going to take Charbonnet next. So I'm reeling here. Yeah, I think there's going to be some more running backs here that I like. I would have gone Charbonnet, honestly. I really would have. I'm going to take Michael Mayer, even though it's not tight end premium. But again, thinking through the lens of these very deep leagues, tight end, and maybe I'm actually probably like a little traumatized with my tight end situation in your league. It's a 2 tight end league. Mandatory 2 tight end starts.
Yep.
And I've been struggling to even find a guy who can give me like 3 points. I've had some injuries. I traded for Irv Smith. He literally got injured the next week. But I think in any deep dynasty, tight end does become difficult. You want at least one guy that you can really count on. I think Michael Mayer is going to be pretty sure he's going to be a 1st round pick. That's very safe draft capital.
Yeah.
And he's going to be, look, I know the main thing with Michael Mayer, and people that are very smart have said this, and I it must be true. They say he's not super athletic. I'm not sure I buy that. I mean, I guess we'll see in testing, but like, look, he's athletic enough that he dominated he dominated the passing game for 3 years at a major institution. Like, I know Notre Dame, I'd count them as P5. I know they're independent. He's just been great. He's done nothing but be great. Like, we can nitpick his athleticism, but he's going to go for 1st round draft capital, and he's been used as a primary receiver. It's not like he's some inline blocker. I think he's super safe. I like him here. And the caveat is you're assuming this is a pretty deep league where tight ends aren't easily available on waivers to pick and choose, but you want that one guy that you can start every week and feel pretty good about it. Even if they're not a Travis Kelce, you at least want like a Hawkinson or something where you feel good about getting 6 targets a week. Because otherwise, you're looking at like 1 for 6. Johnny Smith.
It's rough out there, the tight end landscape after the first 15 or so guys.
Yeah.
It's bad.
Yep. At the end of the 1st round, like we've already said many times, there's going to be some good running back depth in the 2nd round. So I'm going to pick the last wide receiver that I think is kind of worthy of a 1st round pick at this point, and that is Josh Downs out of North Carolina. He is a little bit smaller than some of the guys we talked about so far, but I believe he's 5'10". So in today's modern NFL, where we're based on speed, we are moving away from these alpha wide receivers. We used to always want to find the next Calvin Johnson, Des Bryant, that dominant physical wide receiver to play along the sideline in the X position. But if you haven't noticed, not only has college football moved away from that for years now, but the NFL is starting to move away from that as the NFL is prioritizing speed and not caring as much about physicality and size, as they just want to create yards after the catch. That is the whole premise of offenses now, is yards after the catch. And Josh Downs can do that. And he did that very well last year with Sam Howell. He did it very well this year with Drake May. He is used to NFL talent throwing him the football wherever he goes. And I believe he's going to be a 1st round pick come draft day. He is going to fit in. He is likely going to be a slot receiver, but that is not a bad thing, especially in fantasy football where targets and receptions can really boost up your fantasy points. Josh Downs has great potential in fantasy football.
To the back end of the 1st round, picks 7 through 12, we have Quinton Johnston, Will Levis, Anthony Richardson, Zach Charbonnet, Michael Mayer, 1st tight end off the board. Kind of love it though. And Josh Downs. So, all right, let's do a little bit of a rapid fire 2nd round here. So,
well, Mike, what did the last draft look like in the back half?
My bad. Forgive me. Thank you. Pick 7 was Kayshon Boutte.
Oof.
Did go back.
Who didn't even declare.
Right.
Notice that was an Alfred pick because I wasn't picking Boutte this offseason. I was like, hey, that guy ain't it. I tried to tell y'all.
I blew it.
Number 8 was Jordan Addison. Number 9 was Anthony Richardson. So he stayed in the same spot.
Yeah.
Number 10 was Tank Bigsby, who I think might be mentioned this next round. Number 11, Jermaine Burton, who was a wide receiver from Alabama. Did he not transfer? Did he go into the portal or
no?
Not yet.
But he hasn't declared either. He
Okay.
was not good this year. He was just flat out not good.
No,
I mean,
very
I don't know.
disappointing.
And our very last pick of the first round, Quinton Johnston, who went at number 7 here. So you want to talk about some rising ADP. So let us go. Round 2, pick 1, Alfred. Back to you, my friend.
Yeah, so I guess it's time to dive into the running backs. We've been talking about the depth. I mean, eventually I got to start picking some of these guys, right? So I think I'm going to go with Sean Tucker. We're going to go Sean Tucker here, who was a mid-first round pick last time. Had a good year. He really didn't do anything to, I think, like lose his draft stock. I think just he's boring. He's been good for a while. It's about the same. But he's very, very fast. I think he's going to test well. And I think he'll get day 2 for sure. Probably round 2, maybe late second though. But even if he goes in the 3rd round, not that worried about it. Happy to have him on my team.
Yeah, I'm disappointed. I was hoping I could hold on for one more pick before having to select Sean Tucker. So you sniped me there, Alfred.
I picked him with you in mind. I will trade later if we need to.
Yeah, we'll make it happen.
Well, Nate, can you snipe Alfred now, possibly?
I don't know about that because I saw his face when you said Tank Bigsby, and that's who I'm going with next. So I'm going to grab Tank here. You know, I think he unfortunately played at Auburn. I think he should have transferred last offseason, and he would have probably had a much better position this year for the NFL draft. But you go look at the tape. He did finish the year kind of strong. And you look at the tape, and you can see that Tank Bigsby is a good running back, and he would have had a lot better stats if Auburn had any better of an offense. And, you know, they had a lot of struggles this year. They were not a good team. Mike, Penn State's, just wiped the floor with them when they went down there early in the year.
Surprised.
Kind of the same thing as Sean Tucker. You look at what he did this year. He didn't really do anything wrong. He just kind of plateaued as a prospect over the past 2 years. But I think a lot of that can be Auburn as an offense and a program is kind of plateaued. Tank Bigsby is headed to the NFL, and he's on the up and up too. I think he's a day 2 prospect, and I think he projects very well to the NFL with his size and running style.
Alfred, round 2, pick 3. What are we doing here?
Yeah, this is another. I mean, these are all going to be starting to be tough here because we're splitting hairs and some different things. But I'm going to go with probably the fastest guy in the draft, Devon Achane. He's undersized for sure, but probably going to run low 4.3s. He's a track star. He's actually a really efficient running back. He's not just a speed guy. He's a good actual running back. That offense was atrocious this year, but he's still got a pretty good workload. And I think he's probably a rotational guy in the NFL, but like you're seeing what Tony Pollard's doing. I mean, that's the dream, right? Like splitting work, but still explosive enough to make it happen. So here in the middle 2nd round, I think that explosion is worth betting on.
Nate?
All right. So this is the 16th overall pick, and I'm going to be picking the 7th running back off the board. So through almost 2.5 rounds, half of our prospects are running backs. That's the depth of this class that we're talking about. I'm going with Zach Evans here. Not my favorite guy, but I think he is the last of this tier at the running back position, and he offers a lot of athleticism that he gets into the right place. He could look very good. I am down on his talent overall compared to some of these other running backs, but I think at this point he is a value because of the upside that he brings.
Alfred, round 2, pick 5. What are we doing here?
Yeah, let's take a receiver who I think it could be a 1st-round receiver. That's Jalin Hyatt coming off a Biletnikoff award-winning season. I've actually been a big fan of his since his prospect days, since he was a true freshman. And it took a little while to get things going, but he was borderline breakout as a freshman and actually had a bad 2nd year. And then obviously, won the Biletnikoff Award as the best receiver in college football this year, 15 touchdowns, like 1,300 yards. And so he's blazing fast, and the NFL loves speed, and I'm seeing him consistently mocked in the 1st round. 1st-round real-life player in mid-2nd round. I'll take that every day and just hope for that he pops in a way that's relevant for fantasy.
At 2.5, I really do like that pick. Nate, what are you doing at 2.6? Another running back, possibly?
No, I'm actually going with a wide receiver. I'm following up some speed with some more speed. I got Rashee Rice here. This has been a guy that has been really vaulting up the draft rankings over the last couple months, coming out of SMU. I've liked a couple wide receivers out of SMU over the past couple of years. Reggie Robertson.
There it is.
That's my guy right there. And he was on the practice squad for the Titans for a while, so I'll take that as a win. But Rashee Rice, he at 6'2" or so, I've seen him listed at 6'3". I also seen him listed at 6'1". I don't know where he's actually going to end up, somewhere in that range, but he really checks a lot of the boxes, size wise, athleticism wise, the ability to get down the field, make some contested catches, create some yards after the catch. I do think he might have a bit of a transition into the NFL coming from SMU. Didn't run the most diverse route tree there. Hey, we're betting on talent here in the second round.
So Alfred, kicking it back to you at the 2-7. What are we doing?
Yeah, I think I'm going to keep pounding running back picks here because, at the end of the day, injuries, we know it's a volatile position and we know injuries happen. And even if you took a guy like Rachaad White, who basically did nothing for the first half of the season, so you might have to take some of these guys and hang on. But now he's a routine starter here at the back end of the season and looking pretty good into next year. So even if you have to be patient, I've got a few running backs here, and I'll go first with Chase Brown, who's been a good producer for Illinois for more than for multiple years in a row. I mean, he was a full-blown workhorse last year, and everyone, I think, still wrote him off. I know people at C2C were even like, oh, he's going to end up splitting with, there's another guy that people liked, McCray or some guy who is just bigger and a big fast guy, but he didn't. He was like a borderline Heisman candidate. What he did at Illinois this year, he's had about 10% of receptions, so he can catch the ball a little bit. An offense that doesn't throw very much, kind of Wisconsin, kind of that Wisconsin type offense. He's incredible, and I've watched him, and I've been like, what do I really think of this guy? He's got great contact balance. He's a really tough runner. He's going to be sub 210. I think he's going to be somewhere between 200 and 210 pounds. So he's not going to be massive, but he's a really good running back. Like, he's just #good at football. I think a little bit of a comp could be like a Phillip Lindsay type, kind of undersized, but a really good runner. And maybe even chip in with some receiving. I think he's getting much better draft capital because Lindsay was like undrafted, but yeah. I like him. I think he's going to be a day 2 pick. 3rd round probably is where I'd slot him in, but I think, look what we saw Dameon Pierce do. I mean, I think he can do something like that.
You hear that, Mike? You hear that? Bob just had the biggest grin on from his entire life for about 2 minutes listening to Alfred talk about Chase Brown.
Is Bob a Chase Brown fan?
He's been a huge riser.
Well, then Bob and I have something in common. I love Chase Brown too. I was listening to someone say that Chase Brown, they were worried about his level of competition. I'm like, he played in the Big Ten. He didn't play in the Sun Belt. Like, what are we doing here? I don't know.
I'm not a Chase Brown fan. I'm just going to let you guys know. I mean, I don't think he's a bad running back, but I just think he's a decent backup. I think I kind of place him on the level of a day 3 pick, like a 5th rounder.
Maybe. I mean, it's such a deep class. Like, we're waiting on running backs, so the NFL might do the same. Yep. I don't know if they're all going to cram into the day 2, but like, I know he's a 5th-year senior, but like, the dude had 3,000 total yards in the last 2 seasons. Like, in the Big Ten, that's pretty impressive. I've been impressed with his running. Just
playing devil's advocate, you got guys like Tyler Batty out there, Tyler Goodson, put up a ton of yards in the SEC, and that's kind of how I see Chase Brown.
Okay. Yeah, there's a big difference though. Chase Brown can run people over. Tyler Batty had to run away from people. Tyler Goodson, I like Tyler Goodson, but watching the Iowa offense makes me take a power nap. So there's a bit of a difference there. And Tyler Goodson, he was okay, but he didn't have the power that Chase.
I do think Brown is like, he's sneaky strong, and he's kind of a little undersized, but like, that's what I watched a few Illinois games because I was very curious about Chase Brown, and I bet on them a few times, which obviously makes you want to watch the game. He really impressed me with just like being a good running back. Like, he wasn't gimmicky or anything. He was just getting it done between the tackles, finding holes, vision, contact balance, all that. So,
all right, I'm gonna have to go back because I trust Alfred, I trust Mike, I trust Bob. Everyone around me is saying they like Chase Brown. Maybe I need to go back and check him out a bit more.
I have to do the same on guys. Sometimes you just honestly for me, sometimes I'm in a bad mood watching a guy. I'll give him bad grades, so I got to watch a guy multiple times because it's so subjective. Sometimes your mentality can.
Yeah. Also, I might have watched him after Bijan and Jahmyr Gibbs, and that's just not fair.
Oh, that's also not fair.
You can't do that. Come on.
It is my pick, and I'm actually going to go back to the tight end position here. I'm going to continue to make Bob happy. Bob's going to love the back part of this second.
Can I guess?
Round. Go ahead.
Dalton Kincaid.
Also
one of my dudes.
Yeah, Dalton Kincaid, he doesn't have maybe the pedigree that Michael Mayer has, but Dalton Kincaid, you go back and look at what he's done, not just this year, and the incredible game, of course, against USC, where he had 16 receptions for 230 yards and 2 touchdowns, but the overall season as a whole being the number one option for that offense and carrying that offense in a lot of games. And then you go back and look at his production over his career as a college tight end, and he has multiple years of over 800 yards, including his sophomore year, where he had 800 yards on nearly half the receptions that he had this year when he posted 800 yards. So he's shown the ability to be a chain mover at 12 yards per catch this year, as well as a guy who can get down the field with almost 20 yards per catch as a sophomore. He's really just dominated 4 out of the 5 years that he was in college. The only year he didn't, he had an injury and only played in 1 game, and that was the COVID year. So Dalton Kincaid, while he doesn't have, possibly the first round draft capital Michael Mayer has, when you're looking at fantasy football, there is perhaps no better tight end for fantasy football than Dalton Kincaid, because he is truly a pass catching tight end first. And he has shown that he can produce at just about any level.
My comp for him actually is Zach Ertz. If you watch the way they play, very sure-handed. They move the chains. They don't do a ton after the catch, but they also don't line up in, on the line. They kind of split them out a little bit. So Alfred, you are back up at the 2-9. What do you got?
Yeah, this is probably my last, maybe legitimately favorite running back on the list here. I'm going to go with a third-year absolute breakout, Izzy Abanakanda from Pitt. He's going to have the requisite size we love. I mean, he's almost the perfect frame, 5'11", 215. As a true junior, took him a little while to get going. Second year was okay, had almost 1,000 yards, but then he was given the full reins to the offense as a true junior this year. So third-year player, 1,400 yards, 6 yards per touch, 20 rushing touchdowns, added a few through the air. I wouldn't say he doesn't really meet the number for receptions that I want to see. So that might not be part of his game, but again, you're looking at that late third round, maybe early fourth round guy. If he goes to the right depth chart or even second half of the season with some injuries, I mean, I think he's good. I think he's a good player. I think he's got enough speed, and he's just big. And as a guy that a team could look at and be like, yeah, I can give that guy 25 carries. At this point in the draft, I'm just stacking running backs if you can't tell. But one thing you've learned when you play this long enough, you can never have enough running backs who are on the 2 deep or even the 3 deep on an NFL roster, because they will undoubtedly get run. And you can spot start them and all that.
I agree. All right, Nate, we are back up to you at the 210.
Yeah, and I'm continuing the trend for the running backs that Alfred's been keeping up with. I agree. Any day 2 running back, I'm going to pick over day 2 wide receivers in most cases. And I think this guy has a chance to get third-round draft capital. That's Kendre Miller out of TCU. With Zach Evans leaving this year, it was Kendre's backfield, and he showed that he was able to take control of that backfield, and he has been pivotal to the success of TCU making the playoffs this year. On the ground, through the air, creating chunk plays time after time. I mean, Kendre Miller has really shown everyone that he was more than just a committee back playing with Zach Evans. He's a guy that can take over the lead role. I think there's a chance that he gets into the third round. At worst, I do think he's a 4th round pick. And at that point, I still think he's a good value here because he will get run. He will get opportunities. And I love having that kind of depth on my bench.
2 more picks. Alfred, this is your last one. And then Nate, you are going to close it out for us.
I think this is very fitting. I'm going to go with a guy I really, really like. Been on his side since he was a freshman. Has had some struggles, a little up and down. I'm going to go with Marvin Mims out of Oklahoma. I'm going to finish up with a wide receiver here. I think he gets day 2 capital by the end of it. I mean, I do think he's going to be like a 3rd round pick, unless he tests out the out of the ceiling and blows up the combine. I just think he's good. He's been good. Again, these guys that are good from the moment they walk onto the college field, really, they just kind of retain value in my mind, unless something happens where they totally tank. When you're showing it at 18, even if you have a down second year, he came back this year and led Oklahoma again. Big plays, deep threat. I do think he might be a little limited in terms of his route running and overall receiving, but I think, we don't know a landing spot at this point, but I think in the right offense, he can be a quality wide receiver too on the Y side, not a true X. I don't think he's really a slot. I think he's more of a field stretcher on the Y, but right offense with a good quarterback. What about, the Chargers with a good quarterback, and you've got your alpha, Mike Williams, if they keep him around. Keenan's in the slot. They need kind of the third guy, and Josh Palmer's okay. I'm not sure Josh Palmer's really good, or even what they need. They need a deep threat.
Marvin Mims to the Cowboys, I think, makes a lot of sense. They've been looking for someone to stretch the field because Michael Gallup has not been able to do that since he came back.
Yeah.
And Marvin Mims, I just feel like, hey, you get Oklahoma with Oklahoma, put him with CeeDee Lamb. Sounds fun.
That's my draft. I'm pretty happy. I mean, late second round are still getting guys I'm pretty happy about.
I'm going to finish it off, and I'm going to pick another quarterback. I'm going to select Hendon Hooker. And I think here at the end of the second round, it's super flex. I think it's a guy that we've forgotten about, and he gets pushed down because of the other positions and because we don't know what his draft capital is going to look like at the moment. It's probably not a first round pick anymore. That pipe dream died when he had his injury. So now he's looking like a day 2 quarterback. I would assume second round, but we could go anywhere between day 2. Hit rate isn't great with day 2 quarterbacks, but I've seen him go to maybe the Commanders in a mock draft or to the Buccaneers in a mock draft. There are some really good teams that are going to need quarterbacks next year or as soon as the end of that season or the beginning of the next season that are going to be using a second round or third round pick on a quarterback. And I think Hendon Hooker is going to go to one of those teams where he will be able to sit behind for a year and then have a shot at the quarterback competition. Now, like I said, not a great hit rate with day 2 quarterbacks, but Hendon Hooker showed that he could run a system, and he could run a system really, really well. He's very accurate, hardly ever turns the ball over, has that rushing upside. He really checks all the boxes. The big question marks around him are just, oh, hey, he's 25 already, and then now the knee injury. So we'll see where he lands up. I do think he has a lot of talent. I think he's just kind of in an unlucky situation. But we'll see if that talent can help him get out of a bad spot.
Interesting second round. I loved it. It was great. Alfred, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. Before we head out, why don't you tell everyone out there listening where they can find you and what you have going on?
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter at AlfredJF. But really, I'm a founder of a website, campuscanada.com, and we are kind of going into, I think, our second full year, or even maybe third full year, actually. Once the calendar turns into 2023, it'll be our third full year as a company, putting out all content that you need to enjoy the college side of fantasy is really our goal. And we do reach in a little bit to the NFL side, and we're reaching down into the high school ranks with recruiting, but our sweet spot is everything you want to know for college. But I think it applies to anything we're talking about here. Devy research, dynasty research. Who knows these future rookies better than someone who's been watching them for the last 3 or 4 years in college and knows all about them, watched the college games for the last 4 years. So we feel like we can offer a wide variety of people, not just playing college fantasy, but we've evaluated these guys from a fantasy angle for the last 3 years. Now they're going to the NFL. So we can help you with Dynasty, Devy, CFF, recruiting, you name it. We've got guides you can buy. We've got memberships. We've got tools. We even have some betting content tools now to help you navigate some props on Prize Picks and things like that. So, kind of whatever your bag is, we've got something to help you out at campuscanada.com.
Check out the guys over at Campus to Canton, and Nate. Well, you know where to find Nate. You know where to find me. Thanks again for listening, everybody. Alfred, thank you for hanging out with us, and we will see you next time. Have a happy New Year, everybody.